بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Now, Sufyani is the unrighteous or the evil individual whose rule does not last more than 15 months. And when he emerges, he establishes himself in Damascus. And he also invades Palestine. And we shall connect this to other signs. It is very important to keep this in mind, that his base is Damascus. The movement of the Imam, as we said, begins in Mecca, in Masjid al-Haram. And the first two communities and nations to come to the support of the Imam are from Iran, through this individual Al-Khurasani, and from Yemen, through this individual called Al-Yamani. Al-Yamani is mentioned repeatedly again and again, that the standard of Al-Yamani is that of guidance. If you know of the rising of Al-Yamani, do not fail to reach him. Do not oppose him and support him. Now, as far as the support of the group from Iran is concerned, whether that support is as a government or whether it is not as a government, or if the government changes in how it is shaped today or does not exist as the government does today, but there is a group from Khurasan, this force that we are just referring to as the Iranian force, their role and support for the Imam in the books and riwayat suggests it starts much earlier, a lot before the coming of the Imam, and that they will fight long wars with enemies, and they will continue prevailing over their enemies until closer to the Imam's time, when two individuals of prominence will rise from Iran. This will be one group. Their political and spiritual leader is simply referred to as Al-Khurasani, and they have a military wing to this, and the military leader is called Shu'aib bin Salih. It is important to remember these two names, because these two names refer again and again, not just in the book that I have looked at, but in all the books, Al-Khurasani and Shu'aib bin Salih as the leader of the military from this group from Iran or Khurasan is mentioned again and again. Last year when I talked about Al-Khurasani, I also mentioned briefly what we know from our books on the path that this group takes in Iran, where they start from, where they grow, what are the different cities and regions they go through in Iran before they meet with the Imam. And that would take a lot of time to repeat. If you're able to listen to that, again you can, or inshallah if we're able to discuss it in future, we will. As far as the helpers who come from Yemen, their role is not so much in advance as that of the group from Iran. Their role is just a few months before the Imam, such that if the Imam was to return at the end of Dhul Hijjah, or at the early, between Ramadan and Dhul Hijjah, actually between Ramadan there is an announcement of the return of the Imam, but he publicizes himself more towards Dhul Hijjah and Muharram. These groups of Sufyani and Yamani and Al-Khurasani tend to be more prominent sometime in Rajab. Some of the riwayat said the month of Rajab. Some of them say just a few months before the Imam. Some riwayat says that all three groups will begin their movement and start publicizing themselves on the same year, in the same month, on the same day. So they are very significant in the roles that they play. The Yemeni group plays an important role because of their proximity to Hijaz, which is present-day Saudi Arabia. And those of you who may not be familiar with the landscape of the Middle East, I would urge you to go home and look at this on the internet before you come tomorrow, so that you understand this better. For those of you who have lived in the Middle East or who understand this, you know the proximity of Yemen to Saudi Arabia. They play an important role, the Yemeni group, because when the Imam appears, he starts his movement in Mecca, which is in Hijaz, and at that point there is a vacuum in power and leadership in Hijaz, and we shall talk about this in a few minutes. Amongst the riwayat and the signs that come to us, such as one from Imam Jaffer as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, where he mentions the definite signs of Yamani and Sufyani and Khurasani. He mentions three other signs that I had talked about last year. One is a voice that is heard in the heavens that is called as-sayha. a loud scream or a voice that we shall talk about briefly. The other is the murder of a pure soul that is called in books of riwayat as an-nafs az-zakiyah. An-nafs az-zakiyah is an individual who is extremely, extremely pious, and he is murdered near the Kaaba in Masjid al-Haram, which, as you know, is a place and a sanctuary for people. Whoever enters it is meant to be peace, who is meant to be safe and in peace, but he is murdered right near the Kaaba, very close to the coming of the Imam. And this is a major sign as well. And the third as well that the Imam mentions is that of a landslide between Mecca and Medina that is known as Baida. And we will talk about this. This is a landslide that swallows the army of Sufyani. So these are common signs that are repeated again and again as being definite signs. Now let's talk about the power vacuum in Hijaz. Most of the books that I have seen, they say that towards the time of the Imam, Hijaz will be ruled by kings. There will be a kingdom established. Remember that in Islam there was no mulukiyah, there was no kingdom. But as you know, today in Saudi Arabia there is a kingdom. They call themselves the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And the books of riwayat say the last king of Hijaz will be a man who will be called Abdullah. After he dies, the people of Hijaz will never unite under one ruler. If a king is appointed, he will not rule for years, but he will rule for days and for months at most. And the tribes or the qaba'il of Hijaz will begin fighting for power amongst themselves, which is very, very easy to imagine actually if you understand how things operate in the Middle East. In one tradition in a riwayah, we are told that one of the signs of the dhuhur of the Imam is a disturbance between the haramain, between Mecca and Medina. And when the individual asked the Imam, what kind of a disturbance is this? The Imam said, it is a tribal fight in which 15 prominent members of one tribe will be killed by another tribe between the two harams. By the time this sort of a disturbance happens in Hijaz, Imam Jaffer as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salam alayhi says, you the Muslims as well will be left without an Imam or without any unity or flag to gather under. Some of you will be cursing others, and some of you will be distancing yourselves from each other. You will be tested and you will be tried. You will be filtered again and again until very few of you are left. And hence in one riwayah it says, when Islam began it was gharib, it was a stranger. And Islam shall return and become gharib. It shall once again become a stranger. And just as you entered Islam afwaja, in droves and groups, so shall you leave Islam in droves, afwaja, again, groups and groups. Now this could mean in the literal sense where large numbers of people just turn away from Islam. Or it could mean that in name everyone remains a Muslim, but ideologically and in our aqidah, we take such radical and extreme views that we become different groups while we are one community. And this is the result in part of not having an imam, or not having a clear guide, or having lost individuals with true knowledge, or not having obedience and submission to these individuals who have a true understanding of Islam and a path of moderation, and of promoting individuals who are misguided, and therefore they become then the source of new groups and divisions forming. At this point, while all this is happening in Hijaz, and while Muslims are in disunity and confused and disarray, one of the greatest signs will then appear, which is the voice. The voice will be heard from the heavens on the 23rd of the month of Ramadan. Whether it is the night of Ramadan or the day of Ramadan, I cannot verify that right now. But this voice will mention the name of the Imam and declare that he has returned. And again, there are variations on what this voice will say. Some have simply said the voice will be the voice of Jibreel alayhi salam, and he will declare that your Imam has returned. Respond to him. Some will say that the voice will simply say, جَاءَ الْحَقِّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلِ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا, which is a verse of the Quran saying, truth has come and falsehood has perished. Falsehood was a thing that was bound to perish. After this calling out, we are told the Imam will begin communicating first with only a few individuals amongst his helpers. But the news of his return will begin spreading around the world like wildfire. Rumors will go around and the world will begin talking about this savior who has returned. This will cause many governments to panic because of the rate at which people will talk and show eagerness for it. And in the books of riwayat, we are told that individuals will be so excited, وَيَشْرَبُونَ حُبَّهُ, they will drink from his love. Now, again, we shall talk about the implications of this more tomorrow or day after. But the enemies will be fearful of him, and they will essentially be an attempt to hunt for this individual and to look for him at all costs. And the rumors and the news will be that he is presently in Medina al-Munawwara, which at the time will be true because he will be in Medina. And at that point, an army will move from Syria, which will be the army of Sufyani, towards Medina in an attempt to stop this individual, to look for him and basically kill him. And at that point, we are told a lot of individuals will be killed on the suspicion that they are Shias. Many Shias will be killed in Medina. Many women and children will be taken as captives. And we are told the Imam will leave Medina and head towards Mecca under under circumstances where there is a lot of fear surrounding the area. So he will leave with a lot of caution and secrecy. And this will be the sunnah of the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, because when Musa alayhi salam killed a man in Egypt and left Egypt under the same circumstances of caution and secrecy, the Quran says he left خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبْ. He left in a sense of fear, watching over his shoulder, in a sense being cautious not to reveal himself too much to people. And the Imam will do the same and come to Mecca. In Mecca, he will establish contact with other helpers and aides. Again, notice how this is so ordinary at face value, something that you can relate to and understand. Yet it is miraculous behind the scenes. By the time he comes to Mecca and establishes himself there and begins communicating with some followers, we are now in the month of Muharram. Now we are told in riwayat that on the night of Ashura, after Salatul Isha, in Masjidul Haram, next to the Kaaba, the Imam will openly declare himself as the Mahdi that the Muslims have been waiting for. There will be an attempt, obviously, by individuals to stop him and to kill him even right there and then. This will be his first speech in Mecca, and his helpers who will be with him will stop him from being killed and will basically overcome the enemies who are trying to harm him. The next day, on the day of Ashura, the Imam will address the whole world at large, and he will invite them to come to his help. And everyone will then listen to his address. Now that the Imam has announced himself in Mecca, he will also announce that I will not leave Mecca until one of the greatest prophecies that my grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam prophesied, until that comes true, I will not leave Mecca. And that prophecy is the prophecy of the Prophet of Islam, that an army will be swallowed in a landslide between Medina and Mecca. And this is the books that talk of the happening at Baida, or this outskirts of Medina. So essentially the army of Sufyani that left Damascus and came to Medina to chase the Imam, they will obviously find out that he is in Mecca and he has declared himself to the world and is inviting the world to come to support his cause. And so they will now leave Medina and head towards Mecca. And as they come towards Mecca, somewhere between Medina and Mecca where they camp, a landslide will take place that will swallow literally the whole army. And it will have a miraculous nature to itself, such that those who are left behind, when they come forward to see what has happened, they will get swallowed as well. And those who have gone forward, when they come back to see what has happened, they will get swallowed as well. It is only when this has happened that the Imam will then take the next step. At this point, because of this vacuum of power in Hijaz, and the Imam having taken control of Mecca, that group of Al-Yamani from Yemen, and if you look at the map, you will see the proximity of Yemen to Mecca, that group now joins under the leadership of Yamani and pledges allegiance to the Imam at Mecca. And there is an army of about 10,000 people now that includes the 313 elite Shias of the Imam. And this army of 10,000 now goes to Medina, and there they meet some resistance from what is left of Sufyani's army at Medina, and they are overcome, and the Imam essentially takes over Medina. So the Imam now has full control of Hijaz and Yemen. From there we are told the Imam will now proceed towards Iraq. As he proceeds towards Iraq, on the way he is met with the group or the army that has come from Iran, from Khurasan, that is led by Al-Khurasani and Shu'aib bin Salih. The army now swells, because now that the Imam, before reaching Iraq, he now has under his control Hijaz, Yemen, and Iran, with the groups of Al-Yamani and Al-Khurasani. We said these were the two primary groups that would initially help the Imam. And with this large army, the Imam now moves to Iraq, where again he's met with some resistance, and there are some skirmishes and battles there. And he establishes himself in Iraq, and his capital is now the city of Kufa. And the grandfather of Sufyani is Muawiyah. Muawiyah's base was Damascus. Imam Ali's base was Kufa. They fought a major battle, which was the Battle of Siffin. Because of a group of hypocrites who were the Khawarij, that battle was left inconclusive. It never ended. That led to the formation of the Khawarij, from whom came Ibn Muljim la'natullah alayhi, who assassinated Imam Ali alayhi salam, when they were on the verge of victory at the Battle of Siffin. So that inconclusive battle between Imam Ali alayhi salam and Muawiyah now will conclude, because now history repeats itself, where the descendant of Ali is established in Kufa, and the descendant of Muawiyah is established in Damascus. The place that is of most interest to us at this point is Hijaz, because everything begins with Hijaz. The vacuum of power in Hijaz, the beginning of events starts with Hijaz. We're also interested in Al-Yamani and Al-Khurasani and Al-Sufyani, but their coming is very close to the time of the Imam. Whereas the other events of the tribal feuds and the fights may happen before that.